Hey everybody, Master Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. I first want to just say really quick, beautiful Saturday morning. It's a little bit muggy here in Tokyo, but we're feeling fantastic. Today is the beginning of our 23rd Bachizado. Capoeira Zoador, founded in 1999, August 2nd, by me teaching in a little bit in a station called Shite, outside of Kawasaki station. Today, I've got a couple of interesting things to talk about, and I hope you guys like it. I decided to speak in a little bit more calm and subtle voice because there's a lot of people who are listening and they're practicing their English. So I hope you guys can bear with me that I'm trying to make this podcast available for everyone. Secondly, they're doing construction across the street, so I'm not really sure how good my new sound room is, but I still have the open space, so it's coming directly in and I can hear them, but I hope it's not too bad for you guys. Okay, let's jump right into it. This morning, I came in and I thought to myself, okay, how can I take this podcast forward? And the truth of the matter is, when I checked a lot of podcasts, there's a million how to make your podcast popular, how to get 10,000 people in a month or whatever. And I really don't see myself at that level, but I do see myself affecting my community. First things first, what I'm going to do is after we release the next Japanese podcast in Japanese, it'll be 1 month of Japanese podcasts. So I will start to put them on YouTube. It's not as updated, but it'll be 1 month behind. And the same with our podcast here. I'll start putting episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 consistently every week on YouTube. And hopefully that'll help people who decide to want to support and come in and join our amazing Patreon community here on Mestre Vibes. Last night, how can I say this even better? My brain, sometimes I understand that it's all over the place, and many times I'm thinking 10 things at one time and I connect the dots, and I think that's always been a very good survival skill for me. We say in Capoeira malandragem, malicia, street smarts in English, but I really think it has a lot to do with just my upbringing and the experiences I've had in my life, where I've always had to be quick on my feet and quick with my wits to see opportunity and to move forward. Last night I was relaxing a little bit, and I was watching a movie called what was the movie? Nobody. And it's funny because I was watching it with my wife, and we were just laughing and joking, and we were talking about the movie, how interesting it is. And when I'm about to share with you guys, it might sound fantastic, but it's not really fantastic. It's just the end product of how I lived my life. I never tried to be better than other people, but I always tried to excel and be better than who I was. In 1988, I enrolled in the Latin American Studies program at San Diego State. At the time, it was the fourth best or top-ranked Latin American Studies program in the United States. So generally, it's probably one of the top in the world. And I want to talk about my experience there because it kind of leads me to the movie yesterday. So bear with me in this little story. I walked into the office and I went to the free hours, or what we call the open hours, of the main director, Dr. Davies. I'll never forget him. He was a wonderful person and just an incredibly brilliant, anthropologist, archaeologist. So I walk in and I say, hey, I'm really interested in the Latin American Studies program. And he looks at me, and I'm dressed in sandals. It's San Diego. It's back in the day. It's very, what can I say? Very relaxed atmosphere. He's wearing a guayabera with shorts and huaraches, which is a Mexican, like slippers. And I'm standing there with Mestre Elias, who later we founded Capoeira Quilombo de San Diego, which to this day is still active in San Diego. I think that was in 1994 or 93, I can't remember. But I walk up to Professor Davies and say, "Hey, Professor Davies, I'm really interested in joining the Latin American Studies program." And he goes, "Oh, have you attended? Did you finish your undergraduate?" And I said, "Yes, I have a double in Latin American Studies, Hispanic Studies, and Political Science from the University of San Diego." And he was like, "Oh, excellent, very impressive." He goes, "Do you speak Spanish?" And he goes, "How's your Spanish?" And I go, "Pues señor, mi mamá mexicana, crecí en la frontera, you know." I said, my mom's Mexican, and my name is Arturo. And I was born and raised on the border between the United States and Mexico. So he was like, "Oh, fantastic. How's your Portuguese?" Because you needed at least 2 years of Spanish and at least 1 semester of Portuguese to get into the program. I look over at Mestre Elias, and he's smiling, and he goes, "Should we?" And then in Portuguese, he says, "Should we speak in Portuguese?" And I said, vamos falar em português pouco para o senhor. Let's speak a little bit of Portuguese for the sir. And he was like, "Wow, fantastic." And I could see that he literally said directly to me, "We have very few minorities in the program. You would be a welcomed addition." And the best part is when he goes, "Come on into my office." And I go into his office and I sit down, and he goes, "Here's the main application." He goes, "Here." And he signs off on my Spanish requirement and my Portuguese requirement. He's like, "You obviously know what you're doing." And he just signed it off. So I had no requirement for that. And he said, when my application comes in, he's just going to stamp it. You're in. And this, I realized much later, this is because not many people can walk in and speak 3 languages at the time. And, English and Portuguese and Spanish, minority, and also from a good university. So he was excited to have me, and I understood the dynamics and the educational politics, I guess, if you want to say that. I was very welcomed and made it very simple for me to get in. And I felt I did a very good job. My last semester, when I left the program, I had a 3.8. I finished everything except my master's thesis. So the program is 30 units, 27 units of classes, which is 3 units per class, which was roughly what we call a seminar, which is a seminar meets for 3 hours once a week. And generally you had to present on a piece of literature every week for each class. For me, I was also taking classes like upper division Portuguese literature, like the romance novels. And my professor, Dr. Silverman, was like, "Oh, you can present in Portuguese for the class." And I was like, "Oh, okay." My Portuguese is much better now than back then, but we'll see, especially academic. And the next class would be something like border fronts, and I had to present in Spanish. And then the next class, we were talking at the seminar, and it was in English. So I was constantly free-flowing back and forth between 3 languages all the time, and sitting down to read about 3 books of about 300 pages a week. So I was consuming a lot of information, and writing was we had to write 5-page reviews of our topic of the book each week. So that was about 15 pages of writing a week. And the program was interesting because it was also a professional program. You could test out instead of taking a thesis. And the reason is because there were a lot of people there who were sent by the military, the U.S. military, to study and get their master's degrees. I had a friend who was an incredible conga player, Cuban American, and he was actually a captain in the U.S. Army, and his promotion was dependent upon getting a master's in Latin American Studies and continuing in the U.S. Army. And later he became a major, which was something that was amazing. But I can't remember his name, but he was fantastic. It was nice having another, I don't want to say down to earth Latino. He was also during college playing in a salsa band at El Toritos every week. And we would go for happy hour. I miss those things. Those are amazing. Walking in there and dancing salsa and just cutting loose. And if I can remember, I think it was like dollar Coronas or dollar beers. I can't remember. But that was a long time ago. But the energy, the ambiance of walking in and knowing this guy from an academic background, a professional background, but also seeing his roots background, it reminded me a lot of me. And I wish I would have maintained that friendship a lot more, because he was an amazing individual. So here I just want to give a little side note. And I grew up, if you haven't heard, I was born in Tucson, Arizona. My mom is a Mexican immigrant to the United States. And she took me, my two older brothers, and my sister, and we moved to San Diego. So I was about 8 months old. So all I know about growing up is in South San Diego, I know San Isidro. The problems that you see that are part of growing up as a minority in the United States, especially African American or Latino, a lot of them tend to be similar. And in the future, I'll talk more about those because I have a lot of firsthand experience and research to tell you a little bit and how it is generally, not just my personal opinion, but based on research. Being born and raised I'm just going to come out and say in a very dysfunctional single mother home, had a lot of challenges with it, which today I felt make me stronger, but back then helped me to adapt. I became very adaptable as a person. And working my way all the way up, I kind of felt a lot of times my family was making choices that were not beneficial. For example, in the United States, we have, you have your phone. Back then, you would get a phone in your name. What I didn't know is that my mom several times had registered different things like the phone bill, the gas bill, because she had my social security number from when I was, underage. And she pretty much destroyed my credit in the United States. So it took me years to recover from that and prove. And it was difficult because if I would have said something, then it could have been, identity theft back then. So it would have brought a lot of problems to my mom. And at the time, I didn't think about it. But I realized, I enabled for my family to do that because I didn't do anything. Here's where the story gets juicy. The last semester of my master's degree in San Diego, and this is funny because I don't want to say I gave up on the system, but I realized that I had a lot of things stacked against me that I wasn't going to fix at the time. Or by taking responsibility, I realized I wasn't interested in combating, in fixing, because I already thought, look, I want to live abroad. I want to do capoeira. So in 99, at the beginning of the semester, which I believe the semester started in end of January, right before I came to Japan. No, it was 98. Sorry, it was 98. I got a phone call on my landline. Yeah, landline. And it was actually a CIA recruiter. And he had asked me, because I had talked to a CIA recruiter when I was at USD. We had the big on-campus career festivals and all the government offices were there. And the CIA recruiter said, are you still interested in working in what we call clandestine services? Okay, clandestine services is the name that people think of like spies, but you're more like, I don't want to explain it too deep, but it's like, for example, the way he explained it to us was, you would be a person who tries to get other people to give us information to the United States. For example, if the general of a foreign country Like, for example, a general of a Brazilian or Mexican military has a son that plays tennis and you're similar age, then we're going to train you to play tennis so you can make friendships. And it sounds really cloak and dagger, but it's pretty common practice between governments. And I'm not going to say more than that because I don't know more than that. That was the pitch they gave us for clandestine services in the CIA. And I remember I said, okay, well, sure, why not, right? I got nothing going for me right now, whatever. So I did the application process, and I don't know how many steps there are because I can only tell you how far I got. And the next thing was I had to send in all my paperwork and a couple of essays and how do you see yourself as an American? I can't remember exactly what the questions were, but there were things like how do you see yourself as an American? What do you think about international policy, right? So many different things. And he had said that all the basic requirements I had, for example, language. By this time, I'd already lived in Korea for about 2 years. So my Korean at that point was still semi-conversational. I remember a friend of mine who now is a lawyer had said, how come you didn't put, when I asked him to check my resume back then, he goes, how come you didn't put conversationally fluent Korean? And I said, I'm just not there anymore. So I just put conversationally fluent in English, Japanese, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. So they thought I was an ideal candidate. And at the time, I don't know what the background was, but they were very happy to have me apply. About 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and it was one of the most interesting phone calls I've ever had in my life, I think. It was the second stage of the CIA application process. And I spoke to this gentleman on the phone for about, I must have been at least 30 minutes. And he was just asking me, things that I was doing, what was going on, where did I see myself. He was more than anything, he was explaining what the job entitles. And a lot of those details I can't really remember, but basically what the other guy said, you're going to become like a human negotiator, right? You're going to be talking to people a lot, and you're going to be trying to influence people and all this stuff. And we would train you for all that, And I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. It's like putting my anthropological degree and my skills of growing up malandro to good use or to use, right, at the time. And after that, he said, if we don't contact you by the end of next Friday, then you haven't made it to the next step, and, best of luck with everything you do. Well, that next phone call never came. So I know that I wasn't accepted because he also mentioned that we were going to do a background check, security check. And this is where the story gets juicy, right? So up to this point, it sounds pretty cool, right? Mestre Sukuri was applying to the CIA for clandestine services, blah, 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 blah. And well, at the time, that's just the level of academic and professional that I was at. Okay, I was at that level that before I came to Japan, that's what I wanted to do. That was my career path. I also had an avenue to possibly go on to a PhD at several universities in Latin American studies. Again, my grade point average, my background, and being a minority really also helped back then. But here I am in Japan. I wouldn't change a thing. Turns out when I went to go check for my, the last document was from the local DMV, and it turns out I had an arrest warrant out for me. This is where it gets amazing. Growing up in a very ghetto, uneducated, low-class family really hit me back then. And this is one of the reasons I was like, I'm leaving the United States, because I had to get away from my family because my family was toxic. I went to the DMV, and they were like, you have an arrest warrant for you. an outstanding warrant. And I was like, what? He goes, basically, I had a speeding ticket. And it turns out that my brother was driving his car unregistered, unlicensed. And this is way back when you could get away with those kind of things. And when he got stopped by the police in a fit of panic and stupidity, he said his name was my name and he gave all my details. And then he thought like, oh, I'll pay the ticket off later. And he never did. And when I went to the DMV, they're like, look, you can pay it now and it'll be stopped. But technically that's identity theft. And I wasn't even in the country at the time when this happened. So to prove this would have gotten my brother in a lot of trouble. I decided to just pay the fine right there. The warrant was done, but it made me think that the reason that I probably didn't go to the next round of CIA interview and process was probably because I failed the background check. One of the main things that they were worried about that he had said in our conversation was, we're going to check into your family too, because if your family has problems, then it's difficult because people will tend to do anything for their family. So, for example, if I got the job and somebody's like, hey, we know your brother, needs money, would you be a double agent? I know it sounds very like cloak and dagger and this and that, but it's actually kind of in at that level when I'm thinking, it's not so crazy, but it is still incredibly dangerous and things to do and high level. But fortunately, I was never put in that situation, but I really feel from where I came that I wasn't able to get into the CIA or to the third round because everything else was immaculate, was fantastic. Language, travel, experience abroad. The guy had said he rarely came across a candidate who comes from my background to this level. And I was like, okay, it's just me doing my thing. I never thought I was special. I was just moving forward. And so I always thought that, my family was not only toxic to themselves, to me, but to my career. And it was after that I decided, look, I just need to get away as far as I could from my family. And this is one of the reasons I don't really talk to my mother or to the rest of my family is because I love them, but the toxicity on their side, what they try there's too many things that have happened that I can't forget. I can live with, but I can't forget. And I just don't want to keep reliving that. So that's my story about, almost joining the CIA as a clandestine service operator. I don't know why I brought this up today. I thought it was a little bit funny from the movie last night, and I was talking to my wife. So I thought I'd share this with you guys. So just in case, you can write that under. Maybe it sounds too fantastic. Maybe you won't believe this, but it is what it is. All these things I feel added to my psychological, mental, and who I am as a person. Even though I never went into the CIA, I did come close. But, that's a story for something else, and that's another life, right? In a parallel universe. Maybe in another universe, I actually joined and became a clandestine service operator. Who knows? Today, I'm married to a beautiful woman that I love with all my heart, and 3 great kids, a great capoeira community, and I wouldn't change it. I'm pretty happy. Guys, have a fantastic day. From 11 o'clock, babies workshop, 12 o'clock kids, 2 o'clock adults. Then tonight, chill time. I'm waiting for all the people to come from Korea. Gojira's here from Tokyo, from Bangkok, and Mestre Linguista's coming in soon. I just wanted to put this out there because it's just funny, I want to share with you guys things that have happened in my life so you guys can have not only a good idea of who I am, but maybe reflect on that to help you in your life. these things that happen in life, you know, a lot of times we don't think we have control over them, but we really do. You can't control every aspect of what happens, just like in the Capoeira Roda, you can't control everything. But you can control how you react to things, right? How you decide to do things, how you want to move. One reason I didn't continue going to the PhD program out of the master's program was because basically I didn't want to incur so much more debt. And all I saw that if I would have gone into the PhD, I'd end up being an academic. And that wasn't really something that I was interested in. So I decided to come to Japan. I cleared all my stuff. I made sure everything was clean before I came. Phone bills, everything that I didn't even know I had. After that situation, I checked everything and cleaned everything up and moved forward. Today, I'm Mestre Sukuri, Capoeira Zoador Tokyo. Thank you for joining me.